I have been a big FNAFer ever since the first game came out. I'd watch anything and everything FNAF.
Was that the
Gameplays,
bike?
lore videos, fan games, FFMs, animation, music animations, anything. Quick, comment down your favorite FNAF ship. I'm Foxy X Mango all day. I was even planning to make my first video about the FNAF movie. That never happened, but what I'm trying to say is I know my shit. Still, I had questions when the FNAF 2 movie was revealed. I was surprised they were following the order of the games, considering the first movie's plot revolved more from the books, if I recall. It left me with some questions. Are the Withered animatronics the same animatronics from the movie? Where does Springtrap fit in all this? Why do they why do the toys need voice actors? Is Doug returning? All important questions. So, what am I waiting for? Let's watch this movie.
3 hours later.
Huh. So Doug does return in this movie. Alright, so the second FNAF movie isn't doing well critically, even for video game adaptation horror movie standards. And I don't really get why. Like, I know this movie was always going to be seen as a bad movie, but to be seen as a terrible sequel is quite bold because FNAF 1 wasn't a masterpiece either. And even after seeing it, I don't know how FNAF 2 can be seen as a terrible sequel to FNAF 1. I think FNAF 2 is a better movie than the FNAF 1 movie. Sure, it has a lot of problems, but I think a lot of the problems the second movie has was also major problems with the first movie. In fact, I saw a lot of similarities with the first movie, both positively and mostly negatively. An underutilized villain that only gets 2 scenes? Check. Animatronics that vary heavily in their screen time? Check. Vanessa being a bad character? Check. The throwaway group that's just there to be killed so people don't get bored in the first third of the movie? Check. Corey gets Kenshin in the movie? Check. That was the only thing I liked that was in both movies. Like, I'll concede and I'll say that the dialogue was really bad in this movie, especially in the first parts. Like, that dining scene was just really awkward. Oh, so this is what normal people do? Shut your bitch ass. But it's not like FNAF 1 didn't have its own weak dialogue. FNAF 2 also still continues to not really be a scary movie, but I think it's scarier than the first one. And yes, its kills continue to be a little lackluster because of its PG-13 rating, and it's only willing to kill characters that they know we wouldn't care for or wouldn't like. I'm pretty sure they only kept the teacher around because they wanted to be 100% sure we wouldn't care when he got killed. And that kind of hinders the whole climax of the movie. The idea of this movie is that all these new animatronics are actually being controlled by one child who's possessing the marionette, and that being Charlotte, who was killed in the very first location back in 1982. And she has a vendetta against parents because the parents she was with during that day were apparently from a series of unfortunate events because they just did not care for children at all. Yeah, that whole scene was kind of iffy. But when the climax happens and all the animatronics get out of the pizzeria, we can't have innocent people being killed. That's not fair. So nothing ever comes from the animatronics coming out and targeting parents. No one dies, no one gets hurt. Which leads me to the final bit of the movie, which I'm so confused about. So Marionette and all the toy animatronics are there. The Marionette gets tamed by the music box, but that's when Michael often comes for his second and final appearance. And then he comes around, and all of a sudden it seems like he's controlling the animatronics, which I don't really get. In his first scene, it didn't establish any connection between him and Charlotte. Like, yeah, he wasn't attacked by the animatronics, but also he was attacked by Charlotte when she was possessing someone. So, does he control them or not? And then he goes on to say that his plan is to have the town dead by morning, which I don't know what fantasy land he's living in because these animatronics move slower than molasses and probably would have been destroyed as soon as the police were called. And then that's when the original animatronics come and attack the toy ones. And yeah, it's goofy, but in terms of this scene, that was actually my favorite part. And then he runs away, and then the puppet comes back and then controls Vanessa at the end. Overall, that whole scene was just a clusterfuck. I had no clue what was going on. It seemed like nothing made sense. Where did the animatronics even come from? Because they were gone the whole movie. I thought originally they were taken to the new location and became the literal animatronics, but now they were just hiding in the back rooms the whole movie or something. I still think the animatronics are well designed. I really like the toy ones. I think the marionette especially is very well designed. He looks so realistic. It's just a shame that they barely use it. And I sort of get it because seeing this stringy motherfucker just going around flying or moving around would have been hard to do, I'd assume. So they just go in the route of the puppet being able to possess people, which I guess works. There was this whole idea of a FNAF fan festival going on that was started by Don from the last movie, and it was built up throughout the whole movie, and nothing really came from it. Like, okay, you had the scene with Toy Freddy in the streets, but then he just goes to a random house in the end. And then the voices, I don't think the voices were bad, but besides Toy Chica, who for some reason gets the majority of the screen time out of all animatronics, which, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, it ain't really a bad thing. But besides her, you could have literally made the Toy Freddy and Toy Bonnie not talk at all, and it would have been the same movie. In fact, it seemed like the only reason Toy Bonnie talked was because they realized, oh shit, Toy Bonnie needs to speak. And then they had Matt Pat, who didn't even sound like Matt Pat. I know, he's not supposed to, but still. Like, you could have made him talk about some theories or something. So I've been criticizing this movie this whole time. So how do I actually prefer this over the first movie? Like I said before, I felt like these problems were prevalent in the first movie too. And I also happen to think that the first movie drags a lot more than the second movie does. Like, the second movie has its own problems with how long it takes before any action happens, but the first movie was like just way worse with that, in my opinion. And I also happen to think there are a lot of scenes in this movie that I kind of think were well done. As goofy as the adults were in that first scene, I did like the first scene with Charlotte's death. I mean, like, seeing her being carried by the puppet was low-key some biblical shit. I also liked when Mike was in the office and he was sort of playing the game. In the first movie, what we thought was gonna be scenes of him doing security work was just him having these dream sequences. But in this movie, he's actually sort of playing the role as in the games. And it's actually kind of suspenseful at certain points, especially when they close in and when Foxy appears. And obviously, the mask is not going to work on him. It didn't drag too long. It was just the right amount of gameplay I would have liked to see in a movie. I think that the whole scene itself was executed well. And then there were other scenes too, like when Mango was on top of Vanessa's car, which I thought Mango was underutilized, especially because of the fact she doesn't have a voice, and she was the only person with a voice in the original game, so what's with that? I think the end credit scene with Springtrap being revealed again was a good ender. Okay, that's it. That's all the scenes I liked. And I also like the references, like Shadow Bonnie, Baby, the the plushie that was like har 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 har. People have been clowning on this one scene with like, where's the door? There's no door. What kind of idiot designed this door dialogue that was in the movie? And like, I guess people found it cheesy, but I kind of thought it was funny. Like, I promise I'm not FNAF biased, I swear. Overall, what I'm trying to say is, this movie's bad, but there's a lot of movies that are fun bad, and I think both movies are going to be seen that way. They're going to be seen as movies that are bad, but they're still fun to watch as bad movies. And personally, I think this movie is more fun bad than the first one, which I think is more bad than fun bad, if you know what I'm trying to say here. There's just a little more that goes on. They go a little harder with the references and make it more goofy. They focus on more locations, just things that make the movie more of a enjoyable watch, even if it is bad, and just more of a better movie overall, even if that is minuscule. It's a bad movie, but I wouldn't call it a terrible sequel as everyone else said. And maybe that's just my FNAF bias. Or maybe it was the theater I was with. I had a really good theater. Everyone was into it. I'll see you guys probably next year for all I know. So if you guys like what you see, why don't you guys like, subscribe, and I'll see you later, Fierce.